Importantly, I want to talk about why you want to, or what things you should consider before you refinance and why you might not want to. If you filed a prior bankruptcy, then reach out to a student loan attorney, for instance. We had a case just recently where a client, they had filed bankruptcy with someone else in some other state years ago. And then several years after, the private student loan lender called them and said, hey, your student loan's due, it's $1,000 a month, whatever it is. That person consolidated their loan for a lower payment. They basically did a refinance is what it was. It was called a consolidation, but it's technically a refinance. And so yes, they got a lower payment, but they had this huge debt post-bankruptcy. So forward again, several years later, they reach out to me and they can't make this payment. So they're asking what their options are. Well, we realized that the first loan was essentially included in that bankruptcy and should have been discharged. And we alleged then that the further refinance or consolidation is what they called it after the bankruptcy was probably a reaffirmation of violation, a post-discharge injunction. I mean, this was a pre-petition debt. This was money that they owed before the bankruptcy that was then turned into a different debt after the bankruptcy. There was no notice to the court. There was no approval by the court. These are processes that have to be taken to protect the consumer for accidentally re-signing back up on debt that was included in the bankruptcy. So fast forward to the end, that client ended up with a large sum of money. We ended up getting our attorney's fees paid by the other side, and that private loan is entirely gone, completely gone. Don't have to worry about it. So if you had a prior bankruptcy, there's usually some good options. They're complicated, but they have tremendously great results. Now, another thing is, let's say that you have other debts or this debt and you think a bankruptcy might work. Well, then talk with a bankruptcy attorney. That's something that you might not want to do a refinance right before you file bankruptcy. There are look-back rules. Plus, you also have a situation where the lender that you have the debt with now is maybe someone that we can do a lot more good for you in that bankruptcy than if we refinance it with brand new paperwork that might fix some problems. There was a settlement here in January. 39 attorneys general, however you say that, settled with Navient. And interestingly, and kind of an aside, Navient agreed as part of the reforms in that case to refrain from telling people that private student loans were non-dischargeable in bankruptcy. I like to get that out there because a lot of private lenders say that. They say, oh, your debts are non-dischargeable in bankruptcy. They actually have it written into the account agreements that are signed. That's not true, okay? Number one, you can't agree to a pre-petition bankruptcy waiver. It's not something you can agree to. It's like waiving unemployment insurance. You can't do that either in most cases. So those statements are technically wrong from the very beginning. It's also something that they've never counted on it. Many of these lenders have told their own investors through SEC documents, through the Security Exchange Commission, that these debts are potentially dischargeable in bankruptcy. If they're required to tell their investors that, but yet they're saying the exact opposite to their borrowers, how much can they really rely upon that? So there's some reliance issues. But most importantly, the case law. There's been case after case in the last few years that have allowed for these debts to be considered non-qualified education loans and thus something subject to bankruptcy. And so in that 39 attorneys general settlement with Navient, not only did they agree to refrain from telling people that debt's non-dischargeable in bankruptcy, but if you are eligible for that settlement, then by all means, you don't want to refinance your debt to someone else and take yourself out of that settlement. And so we did a specific video on what the settlement was, the 4 or 5 things that make you eligible. Basically, you have to have gone to a certain school, you have to live in a certain state, one of the 39. You also have to have been 7 months delinquent as of last June, so basically loans that were in default. And the loan has to have been originated by Sally Mae and be of a certain date, 2002, I think, and thereafter. The video has the specifics about that. But if you think you're eligible, then by all means, don't change anything right now. Let's see if that works, and you can contact us if you need further advice on that. If you're older and you think that you might be eligible for total and permanent disability and you have a federal loan, then by all means, don't refinance to a private loan. Even though it may temporarily reduce your interest rate, you're killing your option for a tax-free 100% discharge once you're not able to work full-time. So that's a huge life event and something you don't want to give up, that federal protection there. And my screen just blanked out, but there's a couple other reasons here I want to talk about. Let's say you need income-driven plans. Let's say that your employment is good, but it's sporadic. You don't always have that good employment. Well, privatizing your loan to where you have a payment due each and every month with very limited forbearances and no income-driven opportunities, so it would go up and down based on your income, that's pretty risky. So if you're commissioned, commission sales or anything like that, then be cautious about doing a private plan unless you have a lot of backup resources in case the well runs dry for a few months. And then lastly, if your circumstances present some kind of hardship, whether that's a family hardship, a health hardship, not able to get a job, or something that makes enough money to maintain a minimum standard of living plus pay the student loan, then you might have some options, whether it is to discharge the debt in bankruptcy, whether it is to settle the debt outside of court. You might not want to consider refinancing when you could look at those settlement options instead. When we settle a private student loan debt, for instance, we're generally not paying full dollar. We're usually paying somewhere between 20 and 50 cents on that dollar. And then often it's 0% interest or maybe 1 or 2%, a very low number. So that's something that is important. And if your circumstances warrant that, you want to try that avenue first. And then last before least, we are expecting some bankruptcy changes. The Secretary of Education announced in a March 9 tweet that they gave permission basically for all of their local attorneys that represent the government to stay a case if a borrower asked. And we believe the reason for that is because we expect some significant changes to come about that would affect that borrower in a bankruptcy setting with their federal student loans. We don't know what it is yet. We don't know exactly when it's going to come. My suspicion is that we're going to know sometime in August, perhaps, because the repayment start date for federal loans has been extended to August 31. It's more than likely that that is going to be continued again. We do have midterm elections just a couple months after that. An ideal date of restarting repayments would be the end of the year or perhaps middle of next year. Personally, I might have wanted to restart now just to start getting that taken care of because, again, there's income protection. So if someone's not making an income, there are ways to address that. But that's neither here nor there. The important part is that we're going to have something come out this fall, probably. It's probably going to involve bankruptcy. So if you think you may have some options there, then maybe don't look to refinance the loan right now. Maybe just hold off and wait just a short time. Contact us if you have some concerns about debt collection actions that are being taken in the meantime or anything that's going on. We have a lot of free resources that are available on our website, which is ChristieArkovich.com. We have a free YouTube channel, Student Loan Sidebar. I do short videos like this talking about different things, different programs that are coming out or that have come out, who it affects, things like that. On our website, we have a quarterly cram down article that we do for our local bankruptcy bar association. And then there's just all kinds of things in our blog and things like that. So keep informed. That's the best way to deal with your student loan. The head in the sand approach only helps the other side. So if you have questions, we do one-on-one consultations. If you need further advice, if those free resources aren't getting the answers that you need. And thank you for your time today. And don't forget, student loans suck. Have a good one. All right. Bye-bye.